Good morning, friends. I'm very happy to get to be back with you. After missing last week, it feels like we've been away for oh so long. Let's begin together with a prayer, and then we'll jump into our piece of music for this week. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, dearest friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, saints of all religions, our friend Swami Kriyananda, we bow humbly before all of you. Bless us today, that we might see you everywhere, that we might feel your presence in this melody. Teach our hearts to hold your presence with us at all times. Banish all sorrows, all sufferings, all human griefs, and replace them with love for thee. Om. Peace. Amen. So the song for today comes from Swami Kriyananda's oratorio, which I think we've done one piece from it so far, maybe two. And as we come into the Easter season, perhaps we'll do a few more. But this, the whole body of work of the oratorio is really a tremendous thing. And if you haven't yet listened to it in its entirety, I highly encourage you to do so. You can find it easily on YouTube and on the internet. Just search Swami Kriyananda, Christ Lives, an oratorio, and you can find complete recordings of it. And what it tells is the story of Christ's life told through music. And it's an incredible way to tune into the grace that Christ brought to earth and to tune into the lineage of these Kriya masters in that way. But each of the songs also contain, I think, a lot of wisdom. And this body of music has actually been the source of an enormous amount of spiritual inspiration for me over the years. As I've mentioned, some of the pieces of music contained within it were real pivotal moments for me as a young boy growing up singing this music, because it really touched me and it really transformed me. And so these pieces remain in my heart, these little jewels of spiritual experience, that when I come back to them and I sing them, they remind me of what truth is and of how I relate to it. And this song is actually one that has sort of been a humble and silent giant in my life, and it's called Desert Solitude. And this comes when John the Baptist, after having been born, he renounces the world and he leaves his home, even as a young child, I believe, and just wanders the desert. And for many years, he does that. And this song is just telling that function of the story. But what is so magnificent about the oratorio in general, and about this song in particular, is that it's never just narration. You know, like the song could have just said, and then John went into the desert and he was alone and it was a long time, and then he came out. But instead, they tell us that, but then they also tell us of divine truth. And the melody is just exquisite at that part when it reveals to us divine truth. And so, at any rate, we'll dive into that. We'll talk about the melodic components and all of that as we usually do. But just to set the stage, because this song is, yes, it's wonderful to sing alone, and I do all the time, but really we have to remember that this is a part of a story. This is taking just one moment out of this entire story of Christ's life. And so it's very helpful to remember that this is at the beginning. This is before Christ has taken up his mission. This is still when he would be a young man. And this is John the Baptist going and preparing himself to be able to help Christ in his coming mission. So now let's sit upright together and let's close our eyes. And actually, if you feel to, let's visualize, I like to visualize, this is a personal thing, Sri Yukteswar before I sing this song. Let's visualize his eyes together and try to feel the fire of his wisdom. And more importantly, let's try to feel the depth of his love. And let's invite him to come and be with us through this music, to be in our hearts today. Sing all, left his home, wrapped in solitude, far from men's ways, roaming across desert sands, seeking God's truth. Long years he spoke only with God, until silent of soul, wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. Then he did see God alone. Let's close our eyes and just feel for the promise that this song gives, its hope, its invitation to experience divinity within ourselves as John did at that time. And whatever you feel in your heart, try to cradle this vibration and protect it throughout the rest of your day. Inspiration is like a candle flame, and that if you allow it to be exposed to the winds of outward Maya, it can be snuffed out. But if you nurture it and you take care of it and you hold it carefully, that little candle flame can grow into a great bonfire that can liberate your heart and bring you to freedom. And so if that little fire of inspiration in your heart is just a flicker, hold it gently, hold it carefully until it grows, as it certainly will, to become more and more strong, more and more powerful in itself. But this song, no matter where I am, no matter where my heart is, when I sing this song, there is just that little flicker of that soul recognition that says, ah, yes, I remember that. And I don't mean to say that, at one point in some previous incarnation that was me, but I mean all of us have that soul recognition of saying, that's what I am. That's what I'm seeking. Then he did see God alone. And there's that recognition within all of us that says that's what we're looking for. Isn't that so? Now, this song, it's short. It lasts all of about a minute, and it's only sung once. And in the oratorio, when you hear it performed live, like if you zone out for one moment, or if you check your phone or something, which shame on you if you're checking your phone in an oratorio performance, I'm just joking. But you would miss this. It would just completely fly by. But there's so much here. There's so much glory in these words and in this melody. And I invite you to sing it. Get into it, explore it. And this has a twofold meaning, or a twofold reason. One, not only will this song expand your heart and kindle within it this greater devotion, a yearning for God, but it will also help you to simply appreciate this music more. That when you go and you hear the oratorio performed, or when you listen to the recording, when you come to this song, your heart will expand and you'll remember, oh, this is that song that I love, and you'll be able to go deeply within and experience it inside of yourself as it's intended. And so it's very interesting. If we want to appreciate Swamiji's music more, we should take it more deeply within ourselves. We should take it into our sadhana. And then when we go and we hear it performed, it will thrill us. Actually, another song that I've already done on this broadcast, In the Spirit, which is an exquisite song. But I have used it as part of my sadhana for years and tried to really plumb its depths. And now, just in concert, when I hear the opening arrangement of the organ, it almost takes my breath away. And just recently at one of our Christmas events, I didn't sing it, which is very convenient, because if you have to sing a song, you sort of can't let the devotional ardor overtake you. You have to remain very much in a calm space so you can present this vibration. But someone else was singing it, and as soon as that organ started, I felt so much devotion, I began to weep, because it just immediately elicited in me that response and that yearning of the heart. And this song is very similar to me. As soon as I hear these beginning phrases, I remember, and it pulls me back to this vibration. What an incredible tool that is! And I wish I used it more. And my hope for you is that you can learn to use it as I have been blessed to be able to use it. Now, let's explore some of what makes this piece so magnificent. I've been listening to Swamiji talk about music recently and about creativity. And it's interesting that he says often composers will have an inspiration and the melody will begin to present itself in a particular way. But then out of a fear of sounding predictable, they'll suddenly change the melody at the last moment, as if to say, ha ha, I got you. You thought I'd go here, but I won't. But Swamiji's music has so much integrity. And Swamiji actually praises Mozart and Beethoven and other great composers for being completely in their own integrity. That the music is just exactly what it should be, that there's no deviation, there's no ego to try and be proving itself at any point. It just is what it is. And this music, Swamiji's music, is very much the same. I would lay the laurels of that compliment on every song of his that I've ever sung. It's completely unpretentious. It just is what it is. And many professional musicians, in fact, their first criticism of Swami's music is, it's so simple, it's so predictable. Like, well, yes, but as Yogananda said, God is simple and everything else is complex. And so if it's true, it doesn't need to garland itself in a lot of distracting components. But this melody does that very clearly. And it's interesting is the first phrase is so bare, would be one way of putting it. But actually in the context of this piece and the story that it's telling, it couldn't be more perfect. It's talking about being in desert solitude. So naturally the melody should be sparse. It shouldn't be rolling arpeggios. It should be simple, sincere, directed towards the only goal that exists. And that's just what the melody does. And what I find to be so wonderful about this song is the first half are these very slow, very meditative, isolated tones that just are sort of very patiently moving as if through an empty desert with nothing else around. But then after some time, he begins to discover what he's looking for. And that discovery is happening inside of himself, and the melody begins to reflect that. And suddenly the melody expands, and it reaches upwards towards the height of the scale. But its movement is reminding you of the inner glory. And that the movement of the melody then begins to become more and more expressive, born of inner stillness, which is so just poetic. And then, of course, at the end, that awareness draws itself back to the thread of silence and stillness from which the song began. It's just the way the melody expresses itself is like liquid poetry. So let's take a listen together now. And imagine, if you will, try and feel that even the melody without the words is telling the story of John the Baptist. That at first feel that these sparse tones in the beginning are him wandering that desert. And then as the melody becomes more roaming and expansive, feel that this is his inner revelations. And then feel at the end the concluding tones taking him deeper and deeper in his own self-realization. Isn't it thrilling? There's no note out of place. It says exactly what it needs to say. Now, there's one line in particular of this song that has been the seed of a lot of inspiration and a lot of introspection and prayer. And so let's just talk about the words for a moment together. And it says, John, renouncing all, left his home, wrapped in solitude, far from men's ways, roaming across desert sands, seeking God's truth. Long years he spoke only with God, till silent of soul, wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. Then he did see God alone. Isn't that just incredible? What a beautiful promise. And the lines that I would sing over and over again, you can probably well imagine, are as the long years he spoke only with God, till silent of soul. And this part of the song is giving us the equation. Yogananda said that wisdom is the death of all suffering, which really is something well worth meditating on. What is wisdom? What is that vibration of God's consciousness? That is a sentence which has given me inspiration for years, and I wonder what it means yet. But this song, I think, gives us a little bit of an understanding. And it says, long years he spoke only with God till silent of soul. And then after he was able to finally find the silence of his own soul, then wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. Then he did see God alone. Isn't that magnificent? Isn't that just thrilling to think of? Wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. That's the line that I come back to over and over again. That there is nothing in this world that can quench that yearning, that ache of the heart, that suffering of the heart yearning for God. But wisdom at last can do that. Now let's just sing that phrase of this song. Roaming across desert sands, seeking God's truth. Long years he spoke only with God, till silent of soul, wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. Then he did see God alone. And I would encourage you, just sing this phrase over and over. Long years he spoke only with God, till silent of soul, wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. Then he did see God alone. It's very interesting. I think I would definitely put myself in the disposition of being a bhakti yogi. You know, if people sometimes like to try and label themselves this way or that. But what's interesting is I have become a jnana yogi because of this song and because of what it has taught me, that I want wisdom because that is what will fill the ache of my heart. And so when I sing this song, it almost rips my heart out because it is saying exactly what my heart yearns for. I wish God would give me that wisdom so that that ache of my heart would be gone at last and I could see God alone. And if we could only live in the remembrance of that yearning all the time, imagine what progress we could make. Imagine how happy we could be. Imagine how wonderful we could be to our friends. What life could be if this is how we lived. But this song also gives us the clue for how to accomplish that. Long years he spoke only with God. Now, of course, given the context of most of our lives, if you're watching this, probably yours is not the opportunity to go into a desert and literally speak only with God. But speak with God within everyone that you come into contact with. Remember that he exists, he lives, he breathes in everyone. So talk not just with some stranger or some barista at Starbucks or your loved one, but converse with God through them until you become silent of soul, until you become truly able to listen to his voice present within all creation. And then wisdom will fill the ache of your heart, because you will see God alone. Isn't it wonderful? Let's sing together the whole song now. And let's really do this also as an act of conscious attunement. And interestingly, these slow, long-moving tones in the beginning work very well in our favor to prepare us to have a deeper experience at that more melodic phrase of the song. But through these slow and very conscientious notes, let's try to listen even to the tone that we're creating as we sing, and try and imagine that we're listening and we're attuning even the sound of our voice, the feeling of our consciousness, the vibration of our hearts to the consciousness that Swami put into this piece. And it's very interesting when you tune two musical notes, you can graph it as a sound wave. And if those two sound waves aren't perfectly in tune, they'll clash. And they don't look harmonious. But when they are perfectly in tune, they become one. And so as we sing these long tones, this is how a musician would tune his instrument or would tune his voice, is as you sing these long tones, try to feel your heart's vibration and try to draw the wave of your heart's feelings into unity with the wave of the feeling of this song. And then it will allow your heart to soar more freely and with deep feeling on the moving passage of this piece. And then it won't just be a moving melody or touching poetry, but it will be a revelation. It will be a living, ever new experience within you. Sing all, left his home, wrapped in solitude, far from men's ways, roaming across desert sands, seeking God's truth. Long years he spoke only with God, till silent of soul, wisdom did fill the ache of his heart. Then he did see God alone. And let's hold our hearts open and still for a moment. And let's just feel for that wisdom of God, which will fill every ache and will destroy every suffering, being replaced with that perfect love and bliss of our infinite beloved's presence. Let's try to live more and more in this vibration in our hearts this week. And I hope you enjoy singing this song. Until next time, friends, thank you for joining me.